which is next week is week of prayer. And that doesn't actually affect us in the sense we start at the same time, but we end 10 minutes early every day except Thursday. So just be aware, week of prayer next week doesn't really matter to us, but be aware. And that's the first announcement. Okay, see a thumbs up already. So the second thing is I was looking over homework, and there's a phobia among some of you about using double flats and double sharps and flats, C flats and F flats. And there's some weird stuff happening. So I'm going to start today before we do a quiz, before we do questions, just talking about some of the homework assignments and show you some of these how these double flats and things work, because we have to make sure that we have the right intervals, and that requires sometimes some unusual symbols, but they're not really that unusual in music. We run into pianists run into these things all the time. Some of you are on single line instruments, they simplify and they don't show you the real thing. But let me give you an example. If we look at assignment 12.1, and you don't have to look at it because I'll show you the answer. There's one of the questions says, what happens if I have an F sharp? So I'm going to put an F sharp here. And I have to write a half diminished seventh chord. Well, it turns out that's not hard, because half diminished is you have a diminished chord, which is all minor third. So you put an A in there. And then, thank you for that, computer. And then you put a C in there. That's easy enough.
I don't think you're showing your screen with
Oh, look at that. What a great way to start Friday, huh? I had everything set up and I didn't show you. Okay, so let's start from scratch. So the assignment, forget that one. I'll just put it here. So the assignment said, imagine you have an F sharp and you have to make a half diminished seventh. So half diminished seventh means I need a minor third, because it's diminished chords are made of minor thirds. That's easy. F sharp to A is a minor third. And then another minor third, that gives me a diminished fifth. That's a C. We can figure that out. And then I need a minor seventh. So that means I have to be a step below an F sharp. So that's an E, piece of cake. And so that's number 9 in the homework, and that's easy. Then they give us number 10. And number 10 starts on a G flat. Whoops. Now, G flat tells us that we now have to build, this is going to be all spaces, the F sharp one, because it's in thirds. So this has to be all lines. So it's going to be some version of each of these lines. Because again, we build our chords in thirds, so they're line to line. But here's the trick. F sharp and G flat are the same note. That means all of these have to be the same note, right? If this is going to be a diminished chord, then a diminished chord starting on the same note has to have all the same notes. If that's going to be a minor seventh from an F sharp, well, G flat's the same as an F sharp, that's got to be the same note. So how do I make them the same note? What do I put in front of a B to make it an A? Who wants to tell me? Say it out loud.
I'm guessing it's a double flat.
Yeah, you don't need to, and I hope at some point you won't need to guess, but we're going to get rid of this phobia. So a B is this note. It's not playing. Hold on, let me make it share. One second, I want to share so you can hear it. Wee. Share sound. There we go. So an A is this note, and a B is this note. So a B flat is this note. A B double flat takes us all the way down to the A, because each time you add a flat, you lower by half a step. So a B is that note, a B flat is the black key in between, and the B double flat's the A. So each flat just lowers you half a step. So B double flat means you go from the B to the black key between B and A down to the A. So the A and the B double flat are the same note. You might guess the same thing's true of the D. A D is a white key. We go to the black key if we flat it. And if we put two flats, we're at the white key below it, the C. So a C and a D double flat are the same note. Now there's no black key between E and F. So if I've got an F and I flat it, put a flat in front of it, it takes me down to the next key, which is a white key, it's E. So this chord here and this chord here are exactly the same chord. But because we start on G flat, we have to write this in thirds. We have to write lines to lines to lines because that's how chords work. So it's a G flat to a B double flat to a D double flat to an F flat. Whereas the original is space to space to space to space, F sharp to A to C to E. They're exactly the same notes. And I'll prove it to you because I'm going to have the computer play both things back. Oh, it's already set up. Good. And this is what it's going to sound like. Here's the first chord. Here's the first chord, as I wanted to do. And here's the second chord. Same notes. So the thing I saw in your assignments is a lot of you got your chords correct. Am I taping this? Did I remember to tape it? Hold on a second. Let me do that. I'll be right there, guys. I have to stop the share to see. I forgot. Oh, no, we are recording. Are we? Yes, good. Okay, so yeah, obviously Friday is not my good day, is it? I'm being a little scattered. So this is, we have to get used to these double flats. So the thing is, whenever we're doing a half diminished chord, we have to remember we have a diminished chord on the bottom. That's 2 minor thirds, or a minor third and then a tritone separating. And then the top notes have to be a minor seventh. And it doesn't matter what the bottom note is. We have to make it work with double flats and single flats and everything. Let me see if I could find another. I don't know if that's double flats. Let's try this one. Okay, there's one that starts on a B flat. So I'm going to start on a B flat. There we go. Now I know it's got to be spaces to spaces to spaces because it's got to be in thirds. So I know it's got to be some form of D, some form of F, and some form of A. Now let's figure it out. A B flat to a D is a major third, not a minor third. So how would I make that a minor third? Somebody tell me. How do I make B flat to D a minor third if it's a major third? Major third is this big. I want to make it smaller. How do I make it smaller?
Don't you flat it?
Yep. And I'll flat the top note. It's the top note you have to flat. So now it's a D flat. Now D flat to F is a major third again. It's got 4 half steps. So the same rule. How do I make the F minor third? I have to flat it. Now you say F flat, that's weird. That's an E natural. Yes, it is. But that's how we have to do it. Now I have to make the B flat to the A minor seventh. But B flat to A is a major seventh. So how do I make a major seventh into a minor seventh? Well, one way is to flat the top note. Since we're not allowed to change the bottom note, that's our answer. So there's our correct answer. It's all flats, including an F flat. We can't be afraid of F flats and C flats. We can't be afraid of double flats. Does everyone understand that? I get thumbs up. Okay. So let me do a toughie from number 2. The second one where we have full diminished, just to show it's the same idea, but full diminished, the difference is that we take a minor seventh and we shrink it to a diminished seventh. Remember, the difference between a minor seventh and a diminished seventh is that we take a half step smaller. So you can either lower the top by half a step or raise the bottom, and we can't raise the bottom because it's given to us. So we have to lower the half step even a half step further. So let me see if I can find one that's going to give us some problems. Yeah, here's a good one. B sharp in the bass clef. By the way, some of you did these in treble clef. I found that amusing. Sorry, I found it amusing, but I did. So we start with a B sharp. B sharp, you see, the computer wants me to, oops, B sharp, sorry. The computer wants me to think of it as a C natural because it's the same note, but I refuse. So what's a minor third above a D sharp? A B sharp. Well, if you think of it as a C, it's an E flat. So what's a sharp version of, well, we put the notes in here. So we know it's got to be thirds. Third, some kind of third, some kind of third. So a B sharp's the same as a C. What's a minor third above a C? Somebody just tell me. What's a major third above a C? Major third above a C.
An E.
Yeah, an E. So if I want a minor third above a C, it's an E flat. You just flat it. But now I'm writing it as a D. So what note do I make the D if I want it to be the same as an E flat? E flat's the same note as
D sharp.
D sharp. Now I have to have a minor third above that. So a D, go up those 3 half steps, minor third above a D sharp is an F sharp. Now the 7th in this case has to be fully diminished. So if I think of the B natural, a B sharp as a C natural, then a 7th would be a B flat, would be a minor 7th. So how do I diminish that? How do I make it smaller? How do I make the B flat smaller?
Double.
Yeah, B double flat, which happens to be the same as an A, and that's what's written there. So there's my fully diminished 7th chord. You know, if I wrote it in C, it would look like this. It would look like almost. Let me just write it in C so you can see that it's the same notes, but we spell it differently. So if I wrote it with a C bass, I'd have to have an E flat, a G flat, and a B double flat. I write it as a B sharp bass. It's B sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and A, because B double flat's an A, G flat's an F sharp, E flat's a D sharp, C is a B sharp. So this is the version of it written on B sharp, all the thirds. This is the version written of it on C. They're all thirds apart. Same chord, fully diminished. We getting that, guys? Okay, I got some thumbs up. Leslie, you have a okay. And the last assignment was 12.3. Now, guys, this one, most of you got, but some of you made it harder than you had to. So this case, they're in a major key, and they give you the key signature. And they say, give us a 7/7 chord. Well, all 7/7 chords in major are a diminished chord with a minor 7th. They're all half diminished. That's the rule. Because remember, if I make my chords up here, let's just show you all my chords. You know, so you remember that 1, 4, and 5 are major, 2, 3, and 6 are minor, 7 is diminished, and if I add a 7 to it, it's half diminished. In minor, it's fully diminished because that'll be an A flat. In major, it's half diminished. So all you have to do is go to the 7th degree and write your chord, and the key signature will automatically make it half diminished. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to figure it out. This key signature fixes it for you. Now, when we go to minor, then we have to raise the bass. We have to raise the bottom note in minor to make it harmonic minor. But in major, you don't have to put any accidentals. You just go to the 7th degree and write the chord. It's automatic. It'll give you half diminished every time. Do we understand that? Sophie says no. Sophie, can I help you understand this?
Sorry, I was just making notes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, and you know, this is why I love it when we get homework done and done on time, because I can actually help you guys, I hope, understand. If I go too fast, please, 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 please stop me. If I say it the wrong way, do you understand it? Ask me. And if you don't want to ask in front of your colleagues, even though they're probably having the same problems you are, then send me a note or set up an appointment. I can meet with you privately. But this is where I find out where we have misunderstandings and things like that. And this is a great time to catch them before they become serious or ingrained. So please, guys, I'm so grateful that people hand in some homework. I can look it over. I can see where we're having problems. And that just gives me stuff I can teach. And it makes me very happy when I can do that. So are there any other questions on the material? Ask questions, because if you don't, you have to take a quiz.
So just to make sure, for the diminished triad, it's the bass note and then a minor third.
Yep.
And then the fifth.
It's a diminished fifth, so you can treat it as a diminished fifth over the bass or a minor third over the second note. So if I show you on this, here's the most common one. Whoops, here we go. The B to D is a minor third. The D to F is a minor third. The F to B, the outer notes, is a tritone. So it's a diminished fifth. So a diminished chord has a tritone on the outside, or you could just do minor third and then a second minor third. It'll give you the same answer. Whichever way is the easier way to think about it.
Okay. And then the seventh above that.
Yeah, and then so a half diminished, you would have a minor seventh above it, which would be this note. That's the half diminished, and that's the one that naturally occurs in major. The full diminished, you have to take the minor and flat it because it's a diminished seventh, and that's the one that occurs naturally in minor.
Can you say that again?
So the half diminished is the chord that we see in major keys, and that has a minor seventh over the diminished chord. So you have a B to A is a minor seventh. You have a diminished chord. That's if we're in major. If we're in minor, then what you get instead is you get that flat happens. Now you have a diminished seventh. So you take your minor seventh and flat the top note. You get a diminished seventh, and that's the seventh. It's called a full diminished seventh because a diminished chord with a diminished seventh. The minor chord, in the major version, we have a diminished chord with a minor seventh. We call that a half diminished seventh.
Okay. I got it.
Got it?
Mhm.
Good. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else, guys? Well, then let's dig in. There's a quiz set up for today. If I was smart and lucky, I even set it up correctly. It's a 50-50 chance. Let's take the quiz. Give me a thumbs up when you're done. All righty, we're all done. Who's got questions based on the quiz? Questions based on the quiz. I thought this quiz was hard because I get dizzy with all these different spellings and things. I think this is a hard topic just because it's hard to see. It's a notation problem. We have a very inefficient notation system. So I think it gets very confusing, even if the concepts are understandable. Does anyone have a question for me?
I was focusing on the hard questions and I missed the most easiest one.
Don't you hate that?
I'm so sad.
Oh, I feel bad for you. Oh, good thing it doesn't count for much of the everything, but it's it's so sad. Oh, I know. We focus on the hard ones, so the easy ones come up and blindside us. Oh my gosh! And you know the answer. You know the answer. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, guys, we're going to, in a minute, do some more practicing of resolving these chords because that's just practice. But there's two other concepts. One I've been over once, but I'm going to do again because it's hard. And one's a concept in the book we haven't talked about. That second one is the concept called prolongation. And we know what to prolong means, right? I mean, my doctor prolonged the pain by taking the needle and putting it in really, really, really slowly. We don't prolong is to make things longer, to last longer. And oftentimes we see prolongation in dominant kind of chords because as long as you're on the dominant, you've got tension. As soon as you relax the tonic, things just become all the energy goes out of it. So when composer hits a dominant, and let me go back to sharing a screen. When a composer gets to a dominant, so let's be in C major. So I get a dominant chord. Let's make it a quarter note. The composer doesn't want to go straight to the tonic. The composer wants to stay there. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, there's a dominant chord. Now there's a 7 chord. Now there's a dominant. Now there's a 7. Now there's a dominant 7. Now there's a 7 again, 7, 7, and finally to 1. And this kind of alternating between 5 and 7, because they're both dominant chords, and adding the 7s and taking them away, and then taking a long time to get to 1, we call that prolongation. We're making the penultimate, the second to last chord prolonged to keep the tension prolonged. And that's a very common technique in music. Here's what it sounds like, Takes a long time for us to suddenly relax to the 1 chord. So you'll see that in the book, the word prolongation. It's not the most important concept in the world, but because the word is in there, I decided to spend 2 minutes on it. I'll probably have one question on it on some exam. What is prolongation? Is prolonging the dominant before you get to the tonic, making it longer. So no big deal. The other thing we talked about before, but it's the notation. And we have so many different ways of notating music, especially chords. So what I'm going to do is go onto my whiteboard and see if I can make some of this stuff clear. And again, guys, interrupt me and ask me questions at any time. I want to make sure you understand this. So imagine that I've got a 7 chord in first inversion. If I'm in figured bass, I just write a 7. It doesn't matter that it's a diminished chord, because as long as I'm in the key signature, I just write the 7. So let's say I've got a 7-7 chord in the key of C, a B, D, F, and A. There are no accidentals. So I just write a 7 underneath. That tells me it's a 7 chord. If it's in first inversion, I write the 6-5. But I don't need any accidentals at all because the chord is determined by the key signature. If I write a B, D, F, and then A flat, then I would write a flat 7 because that's a note that I've added to the key signature. But otherwise, you don't have to do anything in figured bass because it's a diminished chord. It just doesn't matter. But if I'm writing it as Roman numerals to say I got a 7 chord, I have to do it with all the notations. So a 7 chord is always written small because it's a diminished chord, just like minor. And then we put a little circle. That tells you it's not minor, it's diminished. And if I put a 7 on it, a full diminished, I just put the 7. If I have it in this chord here, like that B, D, F, A, where it's a half diminished, I throw a line through there. That's my half diminished. So in major, I usually write the 7, half diminished 7. If I'm in minor, I don't have that slash. It's just diminished 7. So that's how I write Roman numerals. And that 7 is a dominant chord. But we also have something called macro analysis, where we just write the name of the chord and then try to find circle progressions. Now we do that so that we don't have to figure out what the heck every chord is. If I'm in C major and suddenly there's an A flat chord, for example, well, that's a flat 6 something. That's a little hard to come up with a Roman numeral for. So I just write A flat, right? And I don't care in macro analysis, we don't care about the inversion. We just care about the chord and what its root is. So if I have a B chord, B diminished chord, I will write B, small letters, and then diminished. And if there's a 7, I'll write a 7. If it's a half diminished, I'll write the little slash. But what happens if it's in first inversion like this? I still write B7. I don't worry about inversions at all in macro notation. Macro, we just care about what the root is, what the chord name is. Now, this gets us some interesting stuff, because in macro notation, if I have a G to a C, doesn't matter what inversion it's in, that just tells me my root is going up a fourth or down a fifth. That's what we call a circle progression, and we mark it with a slur. Well, if I have a B diminished going to a C, that's not a circle progression at all. That's going up half a step. But because B acts like a dominant chord and has almost all the same notes as a dominant chord, we say, well, it's sort of a circle progression. It acts like a circle progression. It isn't really a circle. So we put a dotted slur under it. So we do macro notation, which is when we just write the name of the chord in its root position, but we try to identify our circle progressions. We put a little dotted note. Now, what happens if we're in pop notation? Oh my gosh. Well, a B small like that is a B minor chord. So there's a lot of ways to write diminished. Some pop people will still use the small circle. Some pop people instead will write the word DIM for diminished, or just a D, DIM, instead of the small circle. And some will do the weirdest thing. B is a minor chord, so it's got a minor third on the bottom, but then has a major third above it. So they'll write B, and then they'll write flat 5, because flatting the top note is what changes a diminished minor chord into diminished. So they'll have a B flat 5, and that will mean a diminished chord. It's so confusing. The other thing is that pop guys care about what inversion you're in. So if you're in a 6-5 inversion, so let's say it's a B7 chord, they don't write B6-5 because they don't know what that means. They still write B7 with the diminished or the flat 5, because they're crazy. But then they'll say, but the root of the bass note of the chord is a D because it's in first inversion. They put a slash to say it's a B7 over D. And that slash means B over D. So D is the bass note. That's the same as saying first inversion. Now, this pop notation you don't have to learn yet. We will go over it over and over till it's second nature. But it's actually the most important notation for you to learn, because if you play in a praise band, if you're playing Christian contemporary music, if you're in a rock band, if you're in a jazz band, if you're playing a pop tune, if you're arranging a pop tune with new words for your church, this is the notation they'll use on the lead sheet. This notation here is what we use to analyze root motion, and the book loves macro analysis. We don't use it that much. This figured bass notation just helps us figure out inversions. And then this notation is what we use when we're trying to figure out functional harmony. So the book will use mostly this and occasionally this. The macro notation will appear, we'll need that, but in your real life, this is the one that matters to you. So it's 3 different ways to notate, or 4 different ways to notate. Crazy. Now, let's go through each one more time, and I want you to ask questions. So figured bass notation. That's just probably a 7. If there's a 7th and no accidental, doesn't matter if it's diminished, minor, major, it just means no accidental. 6-5 is first inversion. 4-3 is second inversion. 4-2, that's if you have a 7th on it. Otherwise, it's just a 6 and a 6-4. If you have an accidental, you just put a flat or a sharp in front of the note that's changed. Does everyone understand this notation? If you saw that in music, would you know what it means? If you don't know, let me know right now. Ask questions or tell me you don't even know what to ask. But make sure you tell me what you don't understand. Sophie's got it. Give me a thumbs up if you have it so I feel comfortable. Okay, and then This is our Roman numeral notation, where we put the step of the scale. We put the quality of the chord. So if it's capital, it means it's major. If it's just small, it's minor. If it's small with a circle, it's diminished. If the 7 makes it half diminished, we put a slash. If the 7's full diminished, we don't put a slash. If it's an inversion, we use the same notation, but we use the figured bass notation. So it might be half diminished 7, but in first inversion. For example, we might use that notation. So the number here talks about the inversion. This talks about the kind of chord. This talks about the step of the scale it's based on. And that's the Roman numerals we've been using. Does everyone understand that? I got a thumbs up. Do I have confusions? Thumbs up. Okay, so those two are important. Now, macro analysis, let's just review again. You just write the name of the chord as if it's in root position. A flat is A major, you know. B is a B diminished 7th. Just write it. You can write major, minor, but usually you have capital for A, for major, small for minor, circles for diminished, but you don't care about inversions at all. But if the roots move up a 4th or down a 5th, we have a little slur that says circle progression. And if it's a 7 to 1, we put a dotted note saying it functions like a dominant, which is a circle progression. So it acts like a circle progression. We don't use this as much, but we will use it throughout the year. Does everyone understand this notation? I got a thumbs up. I got 2. Okay. And the last one is pop notation. And remember, there are 100 different pop notations. So let's talk about 2 different aspects. First of all, you can write a DIM for diminished chord. You can write a little circle for diminished chord. Or you can write it as if it's a minor chord and then write flat 5 in parentheses. That tells you that you take the 5th of a minor chord and flat it. This means diminished chord also. And 7ths, if you just write 7ths, is a minor 7th. If it's a diminished 7th, you put a flat in front of the 7. So the chord is either written as diminished or a little circle or as a minor chord with a flat 5. The 7 is always a minor 7th, so you don't have to write half diminished unless you put a little flat in front of it. Then it's that's a diminished 7th. Does everyone understand that much of pop notation? Or do you want me to go over that? Okay. Yep. Okay. And then the way we do inversions in pop notation is we just put what note's the bass note. So, for example, a B chord, the root position B would be the bass. We wouldn't write anything. But first inversion, the D is your bass note. The B is no longer the bass. So we just put a slash and a D. A second inversion of a B chord, F would be the root, the bass. So we put a slash right at F. That's a B over F. So we just use the slash and the bass note instead of numbers to do our inversions in pop music. Do we get that, guys? Everyone understand that? Okay, excellent. Now, it takes a long time to get comfortable with all these notations, and we use so many different notations. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't invent the systems. But if we've got a start where we're understanding all 4 systems, then as things come up, we'll be able to understand, we'll be able to figure out anything. So you can play pop music, you can do classical analysis, you can do it all because we have all the systems. Okay, I'm feeling good now. All right. So let's do some practicing. Pull out some manuscript paper. We don't have a lot of time, but we got some time for some practicing. All right. So what we're going to do on your manuscript paper is pick let's do E major. And I'm going to give you a hint for those of you who are slow to figure this out. That's 4 sharps. Tonic is E. I'd like you to write a 7 chord resolving to 1, but put the 7 chord, and the 1 can be in any inversion that works. I want the 7 chord to be in 3rd inversion. So it's a 4-2 inversion. So you're doing a 4-2 inversion in the key of E major of a half diminished 7th chord. So the 7th chord that comes naturally. So it's a 7-7 chord. Let's try that again. 7-7 going to 1. The inversion of the 7-7 is 4-2. It's the 3rd inversion. The 1 chord could be in whatever inversion will work with the voice leading. And you're in E major. And while you'll do it, I'll do it, then I'll show you my answer, and you compare it to yours. As usual, give me a thumbs up when you're done, guys. Guys, since we're running out of time, I'll show you what I've got because I want to do one more practice thing. I hope you're close and you can compare. So here we are in E major, 4 sharps. And the first thing I did is I said, what's a 7 chord? And remember, a 7/2 diminished will have no accidentals. So if E is my key, that's 8, 7 is the D sharp. So I wrote it in there. If I wanted to, I could have then put it in the inversion to show me I'll put down an octave. So there it is in the last inversion. All I did was I made the top note the bottom note, so it's final inversion. So I know my notes are C, D, F, and A. It's C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and A, and the C is the bottom. So I could pick any note to be my soprano note. I picked the D sharp, and then what I did is I went the closed position, put the rest of the notes. All the notes are right there. I could have done this in treble clef too, so that for those of you who don't read bass clef as well, you can see it, and let's see. So you can still see the notes. And I just filled in the notes in closed position. Now, what's the 7th? The 7th is the top note in root position. 7th has to go downward by step. That's my bass. So I'm going to end up in the 6/4 here. I'm going to end up in the second inversion of my E chord. Bass has to go down. Now, the leading tone is the root. That's the 7th degree of the scale. Remember, the difference between 7th of the chord, 7th degree of the scale, the leading tone wants to go up. So that D is going to want to go up to the E. It turns out that the D and the A form a tritone. So when you're in major, those two notes are a tritone. They want to go in contrary motion. It's the least important, but it still is useful. So if the D goes up, the A wants to go down. Boom. Where's the F sharp going to go? It's going to double something. I'm in an inversion here. It's going to double the E, perhaps. I could have doubled something else, but it goes to the E. So there is my resolution. Yours will be different because you'll have these notes in a different order, but the C has to go down, C sharp, the D sharp has to go up, and chances are you're going to end up in an E chord that's in second inversion because you have to put the B in the bottom. Who's got questions for me? Okay, no questions. So guys, these two steps here, where I wrote the actual notes down, and then I wrote the inversion down so I could see it. This is so useful. Don't do it in your head. You'll go crazy. If you write it down like this, you can see that that's the seventh of the chord because it's the top of the chord. You can see that that's the root of the chord, which is the seventh degree of the scale. So you know they're going to move. Then you write it in inversion. So you say, okay, that's my bass note. These are the other notes I need. I always have scrap paper or use other paper. I'm never going to mark off on a paper because you show your work, but you can also do the scrap paper separately. And then just throw it out. But that's don't be afraid to put these things down. It's so much easier. Then I know my bass note is. I know it's the seventh. I know it has to go down. I'm 3/4 done. After that everything's sort of automatic. So give me a thumbs up if you're basically understanding, even if you're slow or need some more practice. How are we doing? Okay, we're sort of basically, so practice a little bit. Do the homework if it helps. And we're going to do more practice on Monday. We don't have, I can't remember what the schedule is, but we're going to practice this a little bit more until it becomes a little more automatic. Okay, and I'm sorry that we're out of time. So we have 10 minutes less time next week, but we started at the exact same time. So week of prayer doesn't affect us much. You guys have a great Sabbath. Get a lot of rest. Be close to God and close to your relaxation, your own spirit. Enjoy the weekend. Come back strong, and I'll see you all on Monday. All right, everyone.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye bye.